By the way, we'll talk specifically about that, but on Peyton Manning's reception, how many of you here in the room have caught a pass thrown by Peyton Manning? He came to the State House, we honored him in 2005, and it was the last time I was speaker on the podium up above. I knew he had a football signed to Speaker Bosma, and I thought he was going to hand it to him. And he's almost where you are, Madam, closer, a little bit closer than that. He turned and cocked his arm back like that and threw it. And all I could see was my junior year in high school, and that went right through my hands, and we lost the homecoming game. And my eyes were about this big. I didn't catch it. Now let's talk about evaluations. You can put your hands down. And if you've already asked a question, I'm not coming back to you because there's so many hands up. Okay. There's some myths about the evaluation proposal. And there's some poor choice of words by highly placed elected officials about teachers. Forced to acknowledge it. And as I started earlier, the folks that are before you now do not believe that all schools are failing and that all teachers are poor. It couldn't be any more further from the truth. There's no doubt in my mind that you're a highly qualified teacher.
Thank you.
You might be surprised to know that 98% of teachers in Indiana are either qualified or highly qualified under our current evaluation system. That causes some to be skeptical that maybe the evaluation system isn't rigorous enough. You may be shocked to know, those of you who aren't in education, that it's against the law to consider scores of students when evaluating a teacher. It's against the law to look at scores for that classroom. Now, one of the myths is that my pay is going to be tied to whether or not my kids pass the test. That's a myth. The proposal, we have not yet seen in the House, but the proposal, as it's been explained to us, is that we can now track the growth of a student year to year. Not where they are in a raw score of a test, pass or fail, but where they were the prior year and where they are this year. And the concept is that if a group of students are consistently in a teacher's classroom for a year, and the vast majority, perhaps all of those students are receiving a half year of growth instead of a year, perhaps something may be up. Or if they're receiving more than a year of growth in that time period, perhaps something good is up. And just as in my profession, just because somebody doesn't make a grade on one day doesn't mean they're out the door the next. But the idea is someone who consistently can't get the job done, which are few, and who after the application of every means of rehabilitation, training, bringing them along, are unable to make the grade, then to give local decision makers the opportunity to allow those people to leave. Now, I heard something remarkable today that I was really surprised about, that the Fort Wayne Community School System and the local union, the association, came to some remarkable agreements about personnel, and as personnel needed to be dismissed, it wasn't just based on seniority. That is remarkable. In West Lafayette, Indiana, as they handed out big slips, and weren't agreeable to that. And the state teacher of the year was one of the folks, because they were a junior teacher, that was asked to leave. So let me just say that this evaluation process is difficult to talk about. In virtually every other industry, folks are evaluated on an annual basis, and that's what the proposal is to have an annual evaluation of teachers. It's not just based on your score. No more than 50% of an evaluation can be based on scores, and it's not the raw score, it's the improvement from prior years. Now, does that mean the art teacher is going to be, which I met several of back here in the back, there's going to be a whole colony of art teachers back there. They may be putting caricatures together of me at this very moment. So I'm going to go back there and look. No, it'll be has to be a different evaluation system for them than it is for the math teacher. The year after I stepped is but well, if you're going to say we can't have a fair and equal system, so we should not evaluate, I don't agree with that either. So it has to have local flexibility. There's no doubt about that. So the art teacher and the math teacher are not going to be the same evaluation. Those who have trackable growth, should that be part of the evaluation process? I personally do. Now, Does that mean somehow that's translated the desire to evaluate teachers and provide that information and treat those who do an excellent job with incentives and those who don't do an excellent job with rehabilitation is seen as a threat within the profession. And for that, part of it is because of the unfortunate words chosen by some, which I disagree with. But the concept that teachers should be evaluated on an annual basis, I don't have any problem with. In many districts, it's prohibited by contract and by state law. You can't look at a test. That to me is a secret. Yahya, are you going to ask me about Somalia?
Oh, no.
Good. I had a Somalia question earlier. I said we probably wouldn't cover that tonight unless, Kathy, you wanted to talk about Somalia.
Well,
go ahead.
Thanks for coming here.
Thank you.
I'm really glad to see everyone here. I actually like to comment a little bit about the former teacher here. You can take a camel to the water, but you can't force a camel to drink the water. I understood my phrase.
Personal experience in this regard?
Yeah. Why we should use tax dollars taken from public schools to pay for what amount to private profit charter schools defy the logic that forced us in crocodile's mouth. Now, wouldn't you agree, as most educators do, if charter schools were the answers for students, then students' achievement will already be high.
Okay. First of all, charter schools are not the answer. I was pretty clear about that earlier. Part of the answer. And I still haven't heard anything that caused, first of all, public schools, we have to remember, the voucher system, the scholarships, I agree. Bona fide argument there. You've got public money going to private institutions, as we do at the higher education level. We do that in Indiana. Public money does go to our private institutions through the family. If you want to go to Notre Dame, and you get a SASE grant, you take it to Notre Dame, you can take it to Purdue, you can take it to IPFW, you can take it wherever you like. So we do this on the higher education levels. But let's set that scholarship or voucher discussion aside for a second. Charter schools, public school students, by the legislation I'm carrying, held to the same accountability standards as every other traditional public school in the state. That's new, not previously. By the legislation I'm carrying, required to accept any student, not cherry pick, but as I told you, the cherry picking right now is of the most disadvantaged kids. So another public school option that by this bill, I get a lot of head shakes back there, I'm telling you the facts, that it's absolutely indisputable that these are public schools that by the legislation I'm carrying, every student must be considered. So if you want to come grab a copy of the legislation, I may have it with me, you'll find it there. Not current law, but they're held to the same accountability standards. In fact, by this legislation, stronger accountability standards than traditional public schools. So I know there's a lot of pushback in some realm on this, but I still haven't heard the reason why this can't be another option for, if we focus on the students, for Hoosier students. Let's see, I'm going to come right up here. No. She's walking fast.
I have two quick questions.
Hey, please identify yourself, sir. I know you told me, but everybody else.
I'm Chris Brony. I'm a 5th grade teacher in Southwest Allen County Schools at Covington. And I'm actually also an adjunct. I teach here at IPFW in the education department.
I heard a statistic today which was very impressive. 39% of the teachers to the county, in the region, teachers graduated from here.
I did not. I went to Goshen College.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. That's an impressive statistic about the regional campuses, really, how they act.
My first question, it has to do with the charter schools. You keep saying that the charter schools are public schools.
Yes, ma'am.
But I had understood that they're also profit schools, that they're making a profit. Is that accurate?
That is not accurate. They must be run by state law, by a non-profit entity. Now, I heard today for the first time about some real estate deal. I know nothing about it. I'll investigate if we need to. Some local issue that I've never heard of before today that Mark and a couple of other people brought it to my attention. But they must be operated by a non-profit entity. That does not change in the current code.
And then my second question has to do with my IPFW students that are coming into education.
Okay.
I am seeing higher and higher levels of anxiety about people choosing education as a profession, which is of grave concern to me, because in the past, education has been a very stable career for people who are very dedicated. If you look at the amount of education it takes to be a teacher, you have a 4-year college commitment. For most of us, there's a 2-year additional master's plus continuing education on top of that. If you look at most of the private industry, I would be making double my salary.
Yes.
Aware of that, I have chosen to be in public education. And I am a very dedicated person, as are the students that are coming in. But with what's allowed in the news and the things that are being said about education, the students in my class are strongly considering other professions. And my biggest concern for the state of Indiana is that we are scaring off the best and the brightest that we need to come together.
Personal story with you. I have a freshman and a senior at Purdue. Freshman engineer and a senior in elementary education, our daughter, who switched from pharmacy, not because she couldn't cut it in pharmacy, but because she really wanted to be a teacher. And as she approached, of course, all that calculus and science didn't translate and get credit, so she may be there on her father's program with an extra year. I switched my major too. She's at BS. Yeah, okay, I will. I'll call her tonight. And I know I sense some anxiety from her as well. I'll tell you what my philosophy is, and you may say that, well, this isn't important with what you're advocating. It does comport with what I'm advocating. We need to return to the era when teachers were treated as the professionals that they are, the revered and knowledgeable person in the community, and not as members of a collective bargaining unit. Now that's
Collective bargaining.
How is that respecting teachers?
How is that
You guys are going to listen.
And how does it affect student learning?
Let me say something. All right? Well, that's right. It is a little tough. But we've gotten into not just the teachers, policymakers, administrators, not here. There's great cooperation here. But a lot of places, it's us and them. And many times, it's not the teachers and them, it's the union and them. We have to find ways to return to treating teachers individually as professionals. And I know. I'm going to have hands go up in the back. Lots of them. This would be one of the only professions, other than legislator, that you don't reward those who do an outstanding job with additional funds or other incentives. As soon as I actually said it was the only, and then a reporter said, "What about legislative?" Okay. We may be able to think of it. But in virtually every other field, we do reward those who excel. You aren't doing it for the money. My mom didn't do it for the money. My daughter's not doing it for the money. But to recognize and reward in some fashion those who excel, I think is part of the program. That's what the evaluation system is about. It's imperfect, there's no doubt about that. But that's what some are talking about. Okay, I'm going to pick one from the back of the room, and then I'll come up front. Sir, you with the manila envelope in your hand.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for coming. My name is John Eastis, and I'm a 44-year veteran of practice teaching. And I understand the rise in opposition to some of the components that I think are absolute attacks on public education.
Look, tell me which ones you feel are attacks.
Specifically, there's nothing wrong, sir, with collective bargaining when people can dialogue back and forth and come to an agreement. That's a gentleman's concept. I rise in opposition opposition to some of the components of the charter school component that would permit, for example, a school system that may have closed a school or has a school temporarily closed, that something will allow it, be compelled to cause it to lease that to someone else for a charter school for $1 a year.
Let me address that one. That one's
And then-
let me address that one, then you move on to your next one. I just want to get that one out of the way. That one's under close examination. That's an imperfect solution to
I'm glad to hear that,
the vacant building
I'm very
situation.
glad to hear that, because you see, with that component, this is paid for by taxpayer dollars. Absolutely, every building is paid for by taxpayer
And
dollars.
charter schools are taxpayer-funded public schools
And my
as well.
concern
It's a
is,
difference.
then the public school system would then have to pay for the upkeep.
No, that's
what I
removed from the bill. Absolutely removed from the bill.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Absolutely removed from the bill. Shouldn't have been in there from the start. There were a lot of hands in drafting that, and that was removed. It was inappropriate. And we actually added, they do have this right, if they're prepared to conduct a charter school, they have the right to use a vacant building. If they discontinue using it for public instruction, it has to go back to the school corporation. It has to be a truly unused building, not just an underutilized building, and we're still looking at more measures for that. The dollar is probably not right.
So paying for the utilities by, for example, a charter school that would take
Charter school responsibility.
I understand that, and you're telling me, though, that the broken windows and the fire alarms and those other things, they...
Charter school responsibility.
All right, well, I'm glad to hear that that fixes it.
Yep.
Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you. Did you have another one? I kind of cut you off to address the one.
I think I'm done.
You sure? Okay, thank you. Sorry to cut you off. I wanted to get to the one before I forgot the question. Ma'am, you had your hand up all the time right here. Hey, hang on. Here. You guys can jump right in, no one has to.
You're a brave man tonight, sir.
Local government.
Okay.
Both the gentleman sitting next to me and I are from Noble County. We are on the advisory board for the Noble Township. And I'd like to know why, when you have just maybe one or two problems in an area like some of the trustees need, all of a sudden legislators say, okay, do away with it. The governor wants to do away with it. That doesn't make it right. If you want to look at problems, let's look at the Senate, let's look at the Congress and see the problems they have. We work to make them work. We try to find solutions. That's what we need to do with local government. Local government is the heart of the people. We are the closest thing they have. We are the ones they come to talk to. And believe me, they find you. It was said in the paper that most of the people don't know you, couldn't find you, and that is an absolute lie, because that's just not true.
Yeah, go for it. Thanks. My background is local government. I came out of the Adams County Council. I've heard those comments, and I would say if you went to several of my townships, they can tell you who their township trustee is before they know who I am. I feel local government works, especially in some of the smaller communities, and again, coming out of a small county. I do think we have to be open to looking at, and on the level of local control, of looking at ways we can